Hey guys, thanks for joining me for the second Leakfinder in my 2+2 giveback project. This time I'll be reviewing 3 games at the $15 level. I got some good comments on my previous video, so hopefully this one will be interesting for you guys as well. I guess without further ado, let's review some hand histories. I'm not a fan of limping first hand here with Queen 6 off. I think the average opponent folds enough to c-bet that we should be raising any two cards to begin with. I'm probably okay with limping the bottom 10% of our range readless, but Queen 6 is a pretty clear raise for me first hand. Stabbing the flop is fine. Turn is pretty interesting, I think. His range for calling the flop probably looks like 3x, weak ace-x that he checked pre-flop, spades, king high, and some random floats, of course. I've also seen some people check small pocket pairs pre-flop, although this is less likely, of course. Uh, if we bet the turn, I think we can fold out king high if he doesn't have a spade to go with it. We can get value from worse spades that floated the flop, and we have a pretty decent draw, so if we get called and we hit, we can put in a good sized river bet. I mean, there's also value in just folding out his floats, both because they have equity against us and because he will bluff the river with them, and in many cases we won't be able to call. Just betting again plays better versus the floating part of his range. On the other hand, if we bet and get raised, it kind of sucks, and we do have some showdown value, so I don't think checking is bad, but I would probably go ahead and bet here, planning to give up on the river unless I make my flush. As played, we have to call the river versus a half pot bet, and right off the bat we have a pretty important showdown. He floated the flop with one of the worst possible hands and bluffed the river for half pot, so right away I'm gonna tighten my c-betting range a bit and call rivers more liberally in position, especially if he uses this sizing again. I might be more cautious though if he bets bigger on the river after taking that same line, because then it might indicate some sort of sizing tail on his part. Have to call them in 3-bet, and another interesting play from our opponent. Ace deuce offsuit, I think, given that he raised his first button, I would be pretty happy shoving this pre-flop and picking up 40 chips here, almost always, and we still have some equity, of course, for the occasional limp trap with a big pair. I think checking is fine, calling the turn is fine. I think you play that fine. And we should make a note about him limping 6-5 and checking back the flop with 6 high. Now that we've seen this guy is pretty spewy, I don't mind playing a small ball game and trying to limp more hands and keep pot smaller. So I'm actually fine with this limp. I think I would still min bet the flop here and see what he does, possibly barreling somewhat lighter to get him off what we think is a pretty light flop calling range. But I don't think the check is bad with our reads, and we should have plenty of spots to get value from this guy. I think delayed c-betting the turn is fine also. I don't like leading the 5-3 against him. He's gonna call this pretty light and we're out of position and have no equity, so I would just check fold. uh, as played, this river bet can probably fold out Jack 9, Jack 10, 10 9. This bet has to work 1/3 of the time to break even, and I would guess those hands are a little less than 1/3 of his range. So my guess is that we're not getting enough folds here, but I don't hate the bet or anything, although I would probably just check fold here. Nice that we get a fold though. 4-3 suited, I would probably raise pre-flop, and I would probably also call the ISO raise as played. I think our hand plays well enough in position that we can call there. You can make an argument for flatting king 6 to a 3x readless, but I think against this guy, having him limping and min raising, and this is his first 3x, I don't mind folding king 6. Good open fold with 7 deuce. Good. This flop I might actually lead for 32, even if he's floating a lot. I think he's very unlikely to have an ace, given that those hands should be in his min raising or 3xing range, so it's hard for him to have anything really here. I'm also likely to barrel any overcard to the 8 because we've seen that he's capable of floating, so I actually don't mind getting called on the flop so much because we will win a bigger pot a lot of the time on the turn. So yeah, I don't like checking here. After he checks back, I think betting is fine, especially after he checked back 6 high in one of the first hands, showing us he doesn't care to check back with no showdown value. 5 of hearts is not a card that I would continue on. I think I would just check fold here. Not many hands that can pay a river bet here that we beat, and he shouldn't have a lot of error left in his range, so I would just check fold. I think you ran good here when you got called by a worse hand. But I mean, you did bet pretty small, which makes it better. If you're gonna bet here, then you certainly wanna bet small. 8-5 off, I think the limp is fine. I think I would probably bet this flop because we have no showdown value. As played, I would definitely bet the ace turn. I don't like checking 8 high all the way, even against this opponent. I think betting the river is okay as played, but I really think we should have bet earlier. Calling pre-flop is fine. He checks back the flop. In a raised pot, I think he should have a decent range, so I would probably not mess around here with Jack 9 after he checks back. It's a pretty good spot to bet turn and shove river versus people that will have ace high here a lot, but this guy really doesn't seem to have standard ranges at all. Once he bets so small, we need 16.7% equity to continue. We have 4 outs to a straight and 6 outs to make a pair that would be good, say 50% of the time or something. We have implied odds on the straight, so I'm gonna call this bet. And what do you know? Sometimes check high is the best hand. This guy really seems to be all over the place. 6-4 off, I think I would just open fold pre-flop here, especially after he lost this last pot. It's a pretty weak hand. Once we get min raised, I think we're gonna need to call this, although we're not happy, of course, and we have to call the turn, and yeah, we have to call the river. So I think, except for open folding pre-flop, I would play the hand the same way. I think I would just check and call here. I don't really like leading out with the bottom pair. I think it would be okay to lead a stronger hand against him, given that he checks back so much, but I think for 3 I would just check call. Uh, on the turn, I think we're better off turning our hand into a bluff. I really don't feel comfortable just check calling here. I think we're gonna fold a really big chunk of his range by betting again, and I'm gonna shove the river as well if it's a scare card. And I mean, we do have pretty fantastic equity with gotcha, and flush draw, and a pair. So yeah, I like double barreling, although I would probably go slightly bigger, but I don't think it matters a ton. I mean, this way we leave more for the river jam, so this bet is actually fine. Jack 3, I think we should raise pre-flop. The only time we raised in this game, he folded. And this hand doesn't play well in a limped pot. Plus he seems to be raising limps a decent amount. Jack 8, I would just jam pre-flop, I think. Looks good. Good game. The universal replayer that I'm using seems to switch seats randomly. I haven't figured out how I can make him stop doing that, so if you guys know, please post in the comments. A7 off, I would definitely jam versus a limp readless. Checking the turn is fine, and I think betting the river is okay. I would probably bet slightly bigger though. I think if we bet 30, he's gonna call with his bluff catchers anyway. Calling a 3-bet, of course. That's not the worst hand in the world to float a c-bet here. We have 2 backdoors. Decent chance that hitting a jack or 10 will give us the best hand. But I think my standard readless play here would be just folding. Raise calling with ace-8, suited of course. I would probably still raise with 10-4 here, even though we got 3-bet already. And yeah, I think we have to fold out against this lead. Looks good. King 8, I don't like the shove. I don't think we have enough fold equity, and our equity versus a calling range is pretty bad, so I think just flatting pre-flop is going to do much better than going all in. but if we make a straight, that doesn't matter, of course. Open shoving, four fours here, of course, standard. uh, Jamming over a limp with ace jack, also standard. Good open fold with 7-3. Looks good. If I don't say anything, it's just because I think a spot is really standard. I think raising jack deuce here is fine. I mean, he didn't show um, too much resistance versus our min raises. C betting the flop is fine. My standard play on the turn here would be to just give up. I don't want to try and make him fold a king, and it's not entirely impossible that he's got an ace here. He only 3-bet us once, I think, and I really don't like this river bet. If I wanted to bluff on this board, I would do it on the turn where I put a threat to the guy's stack, and not on the river when he's one bet away from showdown. So yeah, I really am not surprised that he looked you up really light here. That's fine, of course. So once again, the first two games had enough spots where I thought there was good value in talking about them, so I'm gonna end up not reviewing the third game. I hope you guys liked this video. There are 6 more on the way, and they should be posted about once a week. I had been contacted by people for coaching following my first video, and I'm definitely looking to take more students. So if you're interested, be sure to check my coaching page. Until next time, take care, guys.